I guess in this episode, we're going to be talking about technology. But before we get into that, we want to do a couple of shout-outs, actually, to some people who have been commenting on some of our videos and stuff, including some suggestions and stuff. So, I mean, anyone who has suggestions at all on what we should be reacting to, talking about, or whatever it is, throw us a comment or an email or a message or whatever, and we'll see what we can do. We got one already from a guy named Ghostman Repost 8041, and he's asking if we can actually react to or do something with Boondocks Uncle Rules. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Boondocks. I'm sort of familiar. I've seen one or two little sort of things here and there. And it's pretty out there as far as an animated cartoon is concerned. Yeah. So like take what Family Guy and South Park do, and even though they're next level stuff compared to like Simpsons, this is like even beyond that. So like there's some pretty dark and pretty hilarious stuff though. So
I'm happy for a laugh.
Yeah, and it's not for the faint-hearted. Like it's not like, you know, if you take offense to a lot of stuff, you can't watch this.
Bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right up our alley.
That's cool.
And then a little while ago, a couple of days ago, we had someone on one of our Whitest Kid You Know reactions and posted about, because we had quite a few comments on that because we were talking about that episode or that show. And we were wondering, where did it come from? Was it on TV and all this kind of stuff? And so people were giving us details on all that stuff. So thanks for all the comments and giving us a heads up on all that stuff. But apparently it was on IFC on TV. I guess this was in the US or something, I suppose. So I don't think I ever saw it in anything here in Australia. So like I don't think many people in Australia even know about the show.
Yeah.
So so it's interesting that show was actually on TV. Considering the kind of humor that they do, it's pretty ballsy, I guess. So
yeah, some of the stuff in Australia wasn't that like it was like haha, but it wasn't like haha funny.
Yeah.
It's so we have it pretty tame here.
Yeah, I mean we got Foxtel, I guess. I mean, I haven't watched Foxtel in a long time, so I don't know what kind of stuff is on there these days. But I guess you can get away with a lot more on that platform compared to like traditional, TV stations. But anyway, there you go. So thanks for everyone for supporting us.
Thanks,
and
guys.
If you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you do it as well. And if you listen to this on Spotify, make sure you follow us and all that kind of good stuff. So there we go. Anyway, let's get into some tech stuff. Speaking of, we actually thought about doing this a little while ago, actually, and then we kind of got distracted and went on to other subjects and stuff. But I guess technology is ingrained with everything that we do. I mean, the fact that we're doing this is just part of the tech. Everyone is part of it. There's no one like it can be, unless you're living in the middle of the wilderness and you're just living off of the land and you're like, you know what I mean? Like
the good life.
Yeah, and like you can probably count on your hand how many people are actually doing that, because that takes a lot of work, a lot of discipline.
There is a lot of people actually getting to that point or actually going out of their way to get to there because they're just so sick of the more technology and all that. Yeah, they just want to get out.
So, I mean, I've thought about it myself as well. I'm trying to get away from everything and, seeing what that does. But, I don't know. But anyway, technology, I guess, I mean, even as a kid, I was kind of drawn to it. Like, I loved, like, even getting into computers, even at an early age. I remember using one of the really early, like, Apple computers in our school. Like, our school had, this is primary school in the 80s. And our primary school had one computer, and it was in this room, and we took in turns, like, using it, and there was all these little silly games and stuff like that. And I just thought, this is cool. Like, it was just better than, like, anything else that I'd seen, And so I got kind of obsessed with it a little bit. And and now, like, fast forward, many, many years later, and it's like, it's just part of our lives now, you know? Crazy.
Yeah, I did play with one of the Apple Macs in the 90s.
And that's the other thing as well is the whole argument with Apple versus PC and Android versus iPhone and stuff like that. And usually it always comes down to Apple users are pretty much they're Apple users for life, and then everyone else kind of just uses whatever they like, And that's what I like about all the other stuff that's not Apple is that it gives you flexibility and you can do whatever you want. What people like about Apple, I guess, is that it's more, there's like security and like it's like consistent and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's a bit more sort of stable as a platform, even with the computers and stuff. But it's just like you look at it and you've never used an Apple or whatever, like it just looks alien to you, you know what I mean? It's just all like their versions of this is like all different. It's the same ideas, but they call everything different, you know, and like documents, Word documents is pages. And,
it was always a pain using Apple when I'm like basically being used to Windows or playing around with DOS or something.
I used to when I first got into computers, it was all like DOS stuff. I learned all the syntax and stuff like commands.
I still remember some of them.
I still remember a lot of them. Yeah, I still do it. Like,
do you ever really need to use them anymore? Might not really. They've got applications that basically do everything for you.
Yeah, there's no DOS in anything anymore. Like it's all like user interfaces and stuff like that. But they still have a DOS program on Windows that if you want to just get to it and play around with it or whatever, you can like rename files and do whatever. But I still remember some of the syntax, like changing hard drives and renaming files and stuff like that, like CD and like get a directory list of all the files like dir, just things like that, so
it was fun. It was actually fun.
Yeah, but it was fun in that it was a learning experience. Like it was all new at the time, So it was like, oh, cool, you can do this. And what I liked about it, and this is kind of I followed into like website design and stuff like that later on. But what I liked about it was the manipulation that you could do with all the programming and stuff like that. Not that I ever got into programming, but like all the things that you could do with syntax and stuff like that, you could on commands, you manipulate certain things on the computer.
Yeah.
And then later on, I used that in website design, where I actually, but back in the day before like WordPress became a thing and Wix and all this kind of stuff, where it was all I just sort of handed to you kind of thing. It was all a point and click and drag and drop. Back in the day, you had to literally write out everything, all
the code.
So you had a blank page, and just and I can still do that to this day. Because when I use like WordPress websites, for example, sometimes it will lock stuff because whatever, I want you to pay more, whatever it is, like a paywall kind of thing. But I could actually go into the back end and manipulate the code and stuff like that. So I still use it on a daily basis, like every day. So I've still kind of retained a lot of that knowledge. But it was fun to kind of like write out a piece of code and then look at the preview of it. It's like, oh my God, you just created this whole like thing, like from nothing, but went from nothing to like something. I can understand now why like people like who paint or create music or whatever have they start with like a blank piece of paper, and all of a sudden 6 months down the track there's an entire whole thing that never existed before, So I totally understand why people of creative minds really enjoy that, So and that's the thing, like technology has allowed people to manipulate a lot of different things and create stuff. Then obviously the drawback is, they get to manipulate stuff and all that kind of thing. When you see this on social media, which we already did an episode on and stuff. But yeah, I've always been in technology. I've always liked to see what was cool and new. And I remember talking to someone the other day actually about like before smartphones came into place. Obviously, there was like the flip phones and all that kind of stuff. But in between that, there was a thing called a PDA. Did you ever come across those things?
What's a PDA? Oh, yeah.
So
and they were like, what are those, pages and stuff like that?
Yeah, so essentially a PDA was like a prelude to the smartphone in that it was like a mini computer, handheld mini computer, and you could do all the things that you could do today on a smartphone, except it wasn't a phone. So you couldn't make any phone calls or anything like that. But you could like create documents and...
I imagine that would have been quite expensive.
It probably was, yeah. But I remember before the smartphone came in, I was going to get a PDA because I thought it was the coolest thing, and I was waiting so long for something like that to come along. And then I think about a year later, the iPhone came out, and I was like, I see where this is going now. You know what I mean? So,
don't go there.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether the PDA was an influence on some of that stuff,
Well, I don't know. They're probably a very, very... antique option. I mean, you can probably buy on Marketplace or
a PDA.
Yeah.
Oh, you could probably buy one somewhere, like an old one. Yeah.
Just muck around with it.
But it was like a mini computer essentially. It was like handheld, and I just thought, oh man, this is like because at the time there was no tablets, no mobile. Like it was like your computer was like your computer, and then like that was it. So you couldn't do anything else. So I remember seeing this guy like at work, and he was walking around with this thing. He had a little pen. And like doing this stuff, I was like, what is that? And he goes, it's a PDA, and you can do all this. He was showing me all these things you could do, and I went, wow. And I literally was going to buy one. And then, like I said, the iPhone came out, and I went, well, the PDA is going to be obsolete because that's exactly what you can do on an iPhone, and then obviously the Android came out and all that stuff. So, but it's amazing to see like where or how much computers have taken over as well.
Same with video games. They're all, computer machines and generating, worlds that people can escape from reality into.
Well, that's the same thing with like, it's programming. They're basically just programmers, creating all these games and stuff. It's all coding and all this kind of stuff, Again, being creative with that, writing out a piece of code and all of a sudden you're seeing that come on into play like in almost like a real life kind of situation.
Yeah, it's kind of funny is like the way technology is going, it's like getting everyone into more of the matrix.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Plugging in and, it's a bit worrying it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and I've had discussions with many people about this, like the positives and negatives of technology and how much we rely on it and how much convenient it's made life at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think there's a spectrum of like, some people are completely obsessed with it where their entire life is just online and they're on social media and they never go out anywhere. And then there's one who are like anti sort of technology and they just don't do anything, they don't want to learn anything new. And I reckon the best way is just to find that balance to see what would work best for you.
I don't want to be overtaken by it, but
you don't want to be left out of it altogether either, But
I also don't want it to control my life,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
We can do pretty well without it. Most of the time.
We lived an entire life up until now without it, so we know we can.
But it's going to be stupid where they're going, well, you have to buy this because you have to, otherwise you can't do this.
Yeah.
And we won't let you do this anymore without technology, and that's when it becomes a problem.
And especially with like, when they're updating stuff on your phone or your computer, whatever. And I just find like a lot of the times those updates are useless and they're just adding on extra stuff that you don't need, Like when you buy a computer, for example, and there's like they loaded all these like programs and apps and stuff onto the computer, a lot of the stuff in there you don't need at all. It's just loaded with like extra unnecessary stuff.
Oh, well, I just question whether or not those updates are really just more stuff to spy on you and better AI better updates so that the system learns better and learns a better way to market stuff to you and rob you of your, hard-earned coin.
Yep.
That type of stuff.
9 times out of 10, those updates do more damage to the phone than good.
Well, you've got the one that recently had for Samsung users.
Oh, yeah, but they were the older Samsungs, though, not the newer ones.
Apparently, it was some of the new ones as well.
I saw the list. I didn't see any. I didn't see my phone on there or anything like that.
So the Samsung store was like, the one in Perth was lined out. Out the door with people going, oh, I've lost all my photos. I didn't even know
there was a Samsung store here in Perth.
Yeah, there's a few.
I've seen the Apple store, but I've never seen that.
There's one in I can't remember what shopping centre it is.
Oh yeah, I've seen the pop-up stores in a shopping centre, but I haven't seen like a physical like building or a store or anything like that for Samsung. But the Apple, they got a store in the city.
Yeah,
which is always busy as well. Like
I haven't gone into any. I know there's the pop-up ones, but I know there was one in Capital City in Australia that had
that's another thing we should touch on as well. Not to sort of change the subject too much, but it kind of falls into the whole tech sort of discussion. But I'm sure you probably heard about the Sanity stores closing down.
Sanity, wow! Yeah. I remember purchasing a lot of music there.
I walked into there a lot over the years, but I don't necessarily think that I bought a lot because the thing with Sanity is that they were, out of all the record stores back in the day, they were the mainstream record store. And a lot of times with the stuff that I like to listen to, I couldn't find the stuff that I liked in that store. Yes, you could find the big ones in there for sure, your Metallicas and Iron Maidens and all that kind of stuff. But I could never find the ones that were a little bit more, sort of slightly more underground. You had to go to like more the proper record stores.
Yeah.
So that was why I never really bought a lot of stuff from Sanity, except for like the big stuff,
I bought a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that because they were just doing ridiculously cheap deals.
Trying to get rid of the stock.
Like, okay.
You can imagine how much the stuff would be now. Like they'd be obviously trying to just unload everything. So if you're looking to buy some really cheap, I don't even know if they sell CDs anymore, but I know they got DVDs still.
Well, I think you can probably organise some bargains on their online store and they ship it out to you.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's obviously a sign of times. You know, like the last of the record stores. I mean, yeah, there's JB Hi-Fi, but when you go to JB Hi-Fi,
that's a giant. It's basically a behemoth that swallowed literally every single company and made a huge, big, giant one.
But their music section is getting smaller and smaller, though. That's the thing. They're becoming more of a retailer now, like Harvey Norman and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's owned by Harvey Norman, or at least the same company that owns Harvey Norman. Yeah. So
wouldn't surprise me. So you look at it like the retail section where like the fridge and all that stuff that's getting bigger and bigger, and the CD section is like getting. Though, in saying that, the vinyl section is getting bigger and bigger, so at least that's something.
But can you imagine, like, this is why I hate technology being involved, right? You've got, like, stupid things that you can do with it. Like, why does your refrigerator need to be connected through to Wi-Fi? Oh, but it can organize, like, it knows when, groceries are gone.
Fridge.
Oh, but someone hacked my fridge while I was at work, and
what can they do with it though? Like, what can
turned
they do
it off while we were on holiday, and everything just like thousands of dollars of meat has just gone off.
Why would you want to hack a fridge though? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Dude, there are sick and twisted people out there. They'll do anything,
Yeah, I guess that's like the old phone prank calls or something like that,
It's like you haven't paid your credit card bill this month. So I'm sorry, but we're stopping your car from moving from this location until you drop that money in.
Well, that's the thing. That's the other thing. Like everything now is becoming just attached to the internet,
and it's like stupid. It's great for people that have no problem with it, but you'll start seeing like people like going, "Oh, you've said this on social media. I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to withdraw cash anymore."
Oh, well, that's the social credit system, which is what China essentially has.
Yeah.
And there's obviously speculation as to whether that's going to filter into like the Western world or whatever.
They want to do that, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that they would try their best, but I think depending on the different certain laws in each country, Australia is very interesting in that there are laws that don't exist in this country that other countries have, that protect them from things like freedom of speech. No, I'm not saying we don't have freedom of speech in Australia.
Don't really, but
but I mean, there's certain things that are like, they're just the basic sort of rule, but then other countries will have like more elaborate. So they're really more protected about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they are. I mean, there's only so much in Australia you can say. Otherwise the police will bust in the podcast room and arrest you.
And look, other countries will find that horrifying, and I guess we're just sort of used to it. And then look at the constitutions of certain other countries, and that like in Europe and in the US and stuff, and it's like they've got things in there by law that they can't be eroded, or it's well protected.
Yeah.
And sadly, there's some of that stuff that we just don't have here for whatever reason, whether they just never bothered to look into it or whether they didn't think it was worth it. But there's always that possibility that somewhere down the line, someone like a government body or whatever can take advantage of that loophole. This is what lawyers and stuff do. They find loopholes in the laws and try to manipulate people like that. And so if we don't have every little sort of nook and cranny covered, people can take advantage of that. We saw that during COVID. Part of that was because they could do that. They got away with it because they could do that. There was nothing illegal about what they did.
It's like luxuries that we didn't have, and it's not like they can take that away and other people get that taken away, and they're going, "Oh, this is really bad." Australians were like, "Yeah, it's no big deal. We never had that anyway."
Exactly. Yeah. And, it's that apathy sort of mentality. It's it comes. It's just second nature to us, but we're very sort of laid back as a society. And so because of that, we don't really care about that kind of thing because conflict has never been an issue in Australia.
We're too young.
We're too young, but we just never had to fight for our independence or for anything. Everything has just been handed to us. The British sort of came in, took the country over, and then kind of just developed the country. We've never done anything for that, whereas other countries have had to fight for all the stuff that they now, are enjoying, in their modern times.
Exactly.
And we don't have that luxury because we're so young. We're still sort of in the middle of the modern sort of world. So I think because of that, that's where a lot of the and obviously the geography as well, the fact that we're so far away from everyone else, that it's like, that's their problem. We have nothing to worry about here. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, it comes here. There are people, people from those countries, they all come over here, and
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So we'll hear about all this stuff, and
and it's good to hear people's different people's perspective as well, because it gives you an idea of like what it's really like. Because I've said this before, we don't really live in reality in this country. We're on a different sort of spectrum. And in WA, which is the west coast of this country, it's even more separated from the rest of the country. Yeah. So we're living in La La Land, even more so than the rest of the country, and even more so than the rest of the world, So again, because of that lack of conflict, that we take it for granted.
Well, for example, you've got some guy from a different country, and he's like, I've been through this before, they did this to us, and all this stuff, and all the Australians are like, yeah, you're just a crazy person, and it's never going to happen here. And that's just really stupid, because, you're basically saying it's never going to happen, and when it does, you won't see it. And
that's the problem that I think we've always gotten used to, like, it'll never happen, and then when something happens, like COVID or things like that, which we never would have thought that would happen, but it happens, and now we just don't know for sure now where things are going to go in the future.
No.
And I think technology for sure is going to play a part in a lot of that stuff.
And that's why I don't want to take those. You've heard Elon Musk with his neural
links, yeah,
where you can upload things, and I mean it does have some benefits, like where someone's paralyzed and
that's supposed to be the idea, but with any good idea, people will take advantage of it and use it for their own corruptive.
Can you imagine if it was actually possible? And this is, you've got to logically think, in this evil world out there, do you think if someone had the luxury of controlling you completely, or thousands of people just electronically, they wouldn't do it?
Yeah.
They would.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
you don't give someone that ability and just expect them not to do it, because that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, anyone who's given any kind of power or advantage, I mean, a lot
they'll 100% use it.
They'll take it, yeah. I mean, you see that in everyday life, every
history.
Time. No, I mean, just in basic stuff at your workplace.
Yeah.
And there's a hierarchy, your supervisor and then your manager. Yeah. I mean, you have a look at it. I mean, eventually, some people who started at the bottom and then they get to the top or whatever, they're corrupted a little bit because of
100%. They used to be hating what those people did to them. Then they became one of them.
They became one of them. Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm not saying that people shouldn't go and try and climb the whatever ladder they want to climb.
You do what you want, but this.
But yeah, I'm just saying that absolute power does corrupt. I mean, there's that cliche saying, but it does. It does.
It does change who you are. Yeah. So.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the advantages of obviously that Neuralink idea as well is the fact that when you plug it into the internet or whatever, instead of looking at your phone and stuff for searching for things or whatever it is, you literally just think of it and it'll just come to you because it's all implanted in your head.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the ideas that they're trying to develop, because I think that's going to happen no matter what we think about it, whether we agree with it or not. I think that is going to happen. We're already attached to the phone all the time. You see people walking around, it's they're just looking at the phone all the time. It's only a matter of time before that phone becomes ingrained into the head or plugged into the head. Matrix style, in the back of the neck kind of thing.
I don't want to do that. I'm definitely not putting my hands up.
You think about that scene in the Matrix when he learns how to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And just plugged into a thing in there. He just learned it in 20 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
100%. Because when people hear about that and they think they can do that and just learn something in 20 seconds.
But you don't understand how dangerous things can be.
I mean, with anything that's convenient, there's always going to be a drawback.
Yeah, but you might not see it until you live the 20, 30 years and go, well, I was wrong on that. I thought it was cool. I had convenience. But
yeah. So it's just whether you think it's going to be worth it or not, I guess. So the main thing, though, the main concern, as long as they don't force people to be part of that. If no one wants to be plugged into the world of
you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't have to, but that we've seen things happen where the government or whatever has just forced people to do things they didn't want to do. So we're not saying that that's not going to happen, but there's always a possibility that it could happen.
Yeah, because you could be the only person that doesn't connect in, and you just see everyone getting hacked, and and you're just well, I didn't do that, but now they're going to kill me.
That's that movie. I'm terrible with names. It might be called Surrogate or something. It was with Bruce Willis, and it was we're living in this world where everyone was basically just plugged into this virtual reality kind of world, and he wanted no part of in any of this stuff. I think it was called Surrogates. Like it was a movie like maybe 10 years ago or so. And then, you can see the kind of corruption that happens because of that stuff. And then obviously he tries to find out what's going on. And so, I mean, there's signs of like that stuff already happening now, you know? So it's just weird that we've seen this stuff in movies, and now that stuff in movies is starting to become a reality. Matrix and stuff like that, you know?
Well, there's nothing stopping, like, if you had the ability to, you know, stop people living so long and just have technology just cut them loose. Like, it was an old movie, Logan's Run? Logan's Run, yeah. So they couldn't live for a certain amount of time, and they would die. You'd reach 30, you'd die. You didn't have a say in it. And, you know, like...
Yeah, there was another movie of a different name, though, and it had Ethan Hawke and... what's that chick's name from the... Uma Thurman.
Yep.
I think they were in this movie where they had the same kind of concept where people only lived a certain age, and then they just basically got rid of them, and they were basically trying to stop this whole thing from happening. Yeah. I think I got the right people in the right movie, but I know there was a movie that came way after the Logan's, because the Logan's Run one's quite old, isn't it? Like from...
Oh, yeah. It's a good movie if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I think I have seen it, but like when I was really, really young though. So
there's so many good science fiction books out there that or old movies and stuff that, you know, no one touches. Eventually Hollywood will redo them and make them new, but and that's when the newer generations will get into it. But there's so many ideas out there, and you know, they do. It's like people have already written the story of how life is going to be like, because they know what humans are going to do and do this. So, and so I think there's a lot of you know, you're going to have cyborg warriors. You're going to have, seriously, Terminators. You know how good... I actually saw a video quite recently of someone who was doing like showing a lifelike human and how the body moved, all the elbow joints moved, and you were like, that looks ridiculously real.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's not short of actually making a Terminator like an actual person that looks very real and putting, like, you know, robot, you know, they could outperform anyone. You'll have your superiors, you know, your management will be robots. You know?
Yeah. I remember seeing an interview with, there was quite a few interviews, but there was one with like quite a few, like a physicist, and they were talking about the idea of, you know, robotics and stuff like that, and like how it's going to play a part into society. And most of them all said there is no reason why a robot has to look like a human in order to do its job.
Yeah, it's true.
For some strange reason, we've got this idea that all robots in the future are all going to look like human and going to make it human-like. But there is no reason. I mean, we got robotics in factories and stuff now. When we make cars and computers and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of times it's robots that's making them, but they don't look like humans. They're just basically essential, you know, basic parts, and they just do what they can do.
Yeah.
So the idea that robots have to look human, there's no reason for it. So I think there's some kind of weird, twisted reason why we would want to make them look like us.
It's probably science fiction.
Yeah. Oh, it just looks cool. I mean, there's a sort of an aesthetic, visual sort of side
like
of it.
Blade Runner, you've got like cyborg humans, so, you know, you've got all these immense powers, you know, strength, speed, you know. Yeah,
and then, so obviously Terminator. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But like I said, like I've even since I was a little kid, I've always embraced it. But the difference is I never sort of, you know, I don't rely on it, so to speak. You know, like I can live life without it. But yeah, I don't know. Like it just seems like there's a lot of people that are just too far into it, and they just don't know how to function without it. You know, like I remember. I think it was maybe during the pandemic when we were in lockdown, and during that time I was using a lot of the Uber Eats stuff, you know, getting stuff delivered to my house. And I remember quite a few times the Uber drivers would drive past, because for whatever reason our street that we live on is sometimes can be it'll get lost or a little bit hard to find on like GPS just won't pick up on it properly, and it'll just bypass and go to another street. And I was like, I don't know, like I understand like you're following the GPS, but like at some point if you can't find a street, wouldn't you just like, I don't know, look up and around to see where the street, like, but these Uber drivers weren't doing that. They were just completely just locked into looking at the phone. And if they couldn't find it on the phone, then like they can't find it.
That's just so weird.
But it's lazy as well, you know. Like I
don't know. It just makes me wonder if whether or not they're really bad, you know, with technology, and they're just like, oh, I don't know how to read this.
Well, yeah, there is such a thing as being, just because you know how to use a piece of technology doesn't mean you're good at it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And everyone knows how to use a phone, but most people don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Or if it breaks down or doesn't work anymore, they don't know how to fix it. You know, I noticed this. I think we maybe talked about it before, but I noticed it with like a lot of younger kids, like, you know, like 11, 12 or teenage years kind of age. And you know, like your grandparents would be always saying like, oh, you know, these kids don't know how to use everything. And it's like, you know, they were so much smarter than us. But like a lot of times, like I would see them and they'd be using the computer or whatever. But then when something goes wrong, they have no idea what to do next.
Oh,
it's like a routine kind of thing. You kind of get locked into this routine, but anything that goes outside of that routine, it's like they don't know how to think past that kind of, you know, I'm not saying all kids are like this, but I'm just saying the ones that I saw, I just noticed it was like interesting.
Yeah.
Like I see it with my own son who's 8 years old. Now a grandparent look at him and go, oh, he's a computer wizard, knows how to use the computer and play games and all this kind of stuff. But like every 5 minutes something goes wrong or whatever, and it's like he's stuck and like he has to come to me and go, how do you, and it's always something simple like closing down the window or like simple basic commands, you know, like I know a few little tricks to close down the window without even touching the mouse or the keyboard, or not the keyboard, but without the mouse, you know, like, you know, when the little X on the corner of a window that closes down the window.
Yeah.
I can close that window without even clicking on the X.
Yeah. But I think it's because like there's, when we were growing up with technology, things weren't as easy as they are now.
So we had to sort of learn to see how it worked in order to...
And because now it's too easy...
They don't have to...
They don't know how to do it. And we like... Well, we did because we had a lot of shit go wrong.
Exactly.
And we had to figure it out, you know, and Google... We couldn't Google everything because, you know, the information wasn't always there.
Or before that, it wasn't even there.
It was very difficult information. You didn't have the luxury YouTube tutorials that we have now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So
I just found that there's a deception that people who are using technology are good at it because they just got used to it, but they're not. They just know how to do the basics.
Yeah.
And, you know, but anything outside of that routine, like, because they never learned how to really use it, it's just been part of, you know, society. You know how to walk, you know how to walk, you know how to open a fridge, you know how to drive a car, but like beyond that, you're like, you know, unless you learn how to do it, you don't know how any of that stuff works and stuff.
Well, for me, it's kind of weird. Is like some things like I just know, I just can't explain it to you. My brain just knows.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, I'm pretty bad at explaining stuff as well.
So I'm just like, like I can't step out of me being in the, you know, driving, you know, and just like, that's how you do it over there. I'm like, I have to do it myself, and then I can fix it. But you know.
But then I also come across, like, I have a few friends who are my age who have no idea how to use a computer.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, where did you grow up? Like we're at the same age. Like, I don't understand how you missed all that complete, you know.
Yeah.
It's strange.
It's even worse when, like, you had people my age because, like, we're, like, you know, the newer generation. So you had more of it around than you did, you know, back in those days. And you could quite easily avoid it. But, like, all your friends would be into the technology, so you'd have no real choice but get into it.
I don't know how they avoided it. That's the thing. Like, I guess you had to... I don't know, going down a certain route or whatever.
You go work in the mines for your whole life?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. It's just strange to me, I guess, because I'm just so used to the fact that it's just been there all the time, you know.
Yeah.
That I just can't comprehend how anyone my age cannot know how to do any of that same stuff. Like,
but don't you feel like a bit like, you know, jealous of those people that they've just they don't ever have to, you know, deal with, you know, the distractions of life, you know, things that you might get distracted and that waste your time. I mean, like, the biggest one for the world is scrolling on social media over stupid content.
Yeah.
You know,
which I don't do anymore. Well, I'll do on Twitter a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? They don't scroll. They've got all this extra time and they don't, you know, have anything stopping them, you know, doing certain tasks, you know, like procrastination.
I mean, there are some people who are wildly successful entrepreneurs, business people, or whatever. Take, for example, Warren Buffett. I'm not getting to the whole idea of like billionaires and what they do and all that stuff. But the fact that Warren Buffett walks around and has just a flip phone.
Yeah.
Not even a smartphone, just like a basic flip phone that all it does is text and call. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the guy's a billionaire, so he doesn't need it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of smart, rich people actually put proper limits on how much they consume.
Yeah, well, that's a discipline thing, I guess. So.
Because they know how much it can ruin your life if you let it get away too much.
Well, the most successful people in the world usually are the ones who have the most discipline at the same time.
Yeah.
And by the way, in one of the other episodes we did, we were talking about that guy, the actor that I said, who had this regimen, this routine where he wished to wake up at 3:30 in the morning every day.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, that was his name.
Mark Wahlberg.
Every day he wakes up at 3:30 in the morning. And he has his routine, like he has his workout sessions and he goes through a shower and then he has these 3-hour work sessions and all this kind of stuff every single day. Yeah. 3:30 in the morning he wakes up every day and gets started. And that's, why he's, successful. Because he doesn't just act, he does other things as well. So, and that name was just driving me nuts. Like I couldn't figure out who it was. And, so Mark Wahlberg, of all the people, like, you wouldn't think of him as like, just sort of... super successful. I mean, he's successful, but like there's more to it than just his acting, apparently. So, but that's the kind of discipline that does create success, And I mean, can you be that disciplined every single day, doing those same jobs and tasks and
you could if you had someone there that would just punch you in the face every time you got distracted. No more.
Well, that's where you need like a coach or like if you're going to do workouts in the gym and all that. They reckon the best way to do it is to actually hire a what do they call, like a fitness coach or whatever,
personal trainer.
Personal trainer.
I actually wouldn't mind if AI, like a robot or whatever, would just say, get moving, you're wasting too much time.
But would you listen to a robot though?
maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe if it gave me electric shocks every time and I'm like, but then I now feel like I'm cattle.
There's also the other way to that is the reward system. Planning towards some kind of a goal, whether it's a mini goal per day or a long-term goal or whatever it is. Maybe that's another way to do it. I've always been iffy about the whole reward system. Like, I don't think, especially for when you're trying to do good things in life to other people, you shouldn't do things like that in order to get a reward. You should just do them because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So I'm always a little bit iffy on the whole reward system. But the reward system is kind of ingrained in nature because a lot of animals and stuff will do things for rewards. Dogs, for example, and and
if they hunt, they might not get it.
Exactly.
But if they don't do it, they'll never know whether they get food or not.
Exactly. So it's almost like a survival component a little bit. So, and obviously because of the way that we've evolved, the survival component's kind of been lost a little bit, but it's kind of come back in sort of weird ways. It's sort of manifested himself in like these really weird reward systems that we kind of develop for ourselves,
Well, technology has allowed us to sort of come back to more primitive type of things where, going out in nature and doing, a bit more stuff, like learning about it, like the guy in Canada, learning how to be in the wilderness, through his YouTube videos. That type of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's why I like that. I've mentioned it before as well. That guy in Canada, camping with Steve. This guy's named Steve Wallace. Yeah. Was that the guy saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
So he just goes out and camps and all that, and he's very not tech savvy, even though he does rely on technology in order for him to do these videos and stuff. But there's that balance of like, he needs that to do the work, but then he still does the things that doesn't require technology, building a fire camp, or, your tent or shelter and all that stuff. You don't need technology for that.
Yeah.
Although in saying that, the word technology can be a little deceiving because we think of technology as like computers and things like that. But technology can also be primitive stuff, tools and, things that to use to build houses and stuff like that. I mean, that's technology, technically speaking, as well.
Yeah. I know that it's like, we've used this. It's like a marketing catchphrase. They go, this technology. I'm like, well, it's not that impressive,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But at the time, though, it would have been probably.
Yeah, but like, they just seem to slap it on something. Oh, we've made it a little bit bigger, so it's better technology.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to sort of go on as far as the tech stuff.
Yeah, just got to be careful about how technology is going, you know. It's got its dangers out there.
Just try to find a balance, I guess, you know. Don't sort of just be completely enveloped into... But, I mean, I guess it depends on your situation, because some people, their whole career and their whole life is kind of...
consuming it.
Yeah, it's part of what they do, so... some people can handle it and some people cannot. So, you know, you just got to figure that for yourself.
Yeah.
Because it can also be very addictive as well. You know, obsessed with watching, you know, videos or being on social media or just, you know, whatever it is, you know, it can be very addictive. Video games, you know, you can just spend hours and hours and hours just...
Of course. It's quite funny because, like, if you are not you're very depressed, example, with your life and how it's going, you can escape into a more exciting life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what people like to do. They like to escape their, you know, boring day jobs and go home and just, you know, go into a different world.
Yeah.
So,
but I just think that there should be a wake-up call. Like, if you're trying to escape reality by going into these virtual realities, then maybe you should just fix the reality that you're in.
Yeah.
You know,
make it better.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
You wouldn't have to try and escape it all the time.
Yeah.
Know? But I don't know, it's just a food for thought, I guess. So.
That's true.
Anyway, we'll end it on there. Thanks again for all your support. Please subscribe and subscribe to our channels. Like all the videos, and obviously if you listen to this on Spotify, please follow us on there as well.
Let us know if there's something we've missed or you want to add to it, because we'll shout you out in the next video. And
so keep the suggestions coming along, and some feedback as well, because obviously, you know, we're open to criticism, and also we're open to, like, you know, positive stuff as well.
Yeah.
So
doesn't happen very often, the positive. You just kind of guess if people are listening, I guess.
But we'll figure out some stuff to get into for future episodes as well. But definitely open to suggestions. So I guess we'll see you on the next episode. Hashtag Chimps on the Chinwag.
And Happy New Year, New Year, Chimwaggers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool. We'll see you soon.
See ya.